We are back in beautiful western Arizona and are currently en route to Swansea Ghost Town. However, today we aren't just exploring this historic ghost town. Our vehicles are fully loaded with tents and camping supplies because we're setting up camp and spending the night out there. A brief overview. Swansea was established in 1909 and is located in La Paz County, Arizona, not far from Lake Havasu and Parker. During the early 1900s, it served as a mining town as well as a location for processing and smelting the copper ore taken from the nearby mines. At its peak, Swansea boasted 1,000 residents, an electric light company, an automobile dealership, a lumber company, 2 cemeteries, a bar, insurance agent, dairy milking house, theater, hospital, school, and of course the local mining operations. Unfortunately, the town's prosperity was short-lived due to poor financial decisions, and it eventually succumbed to a slow and painful demise. If you are new to our channel, my name is Darren, and behind me is my dad, Kirk. We enjoy fast-paced off-roading combined with on-site history lessons. The current temperature is 73 degrees, we have plenty of water, extra fuel, and all of our camping supplies. I do expect this trip to be 100 miles round trip with a few interesting stops along the way. If you enjoy off-road adventures with a crash course in American history, then buckle up, because this is Off-Road Destinations, and today we're headed to Swansea Ghost Town. Swansea is one of those places, Kirk and we've been wanting to film this ever since we first started our channel, but we've purposely been holding off. Swansea Ghost Town to us has so much historical significance to Arizona that we really didn't want to do it prematurely. We wanted to ensure that our rides were good, our video equipment was good, and all the research done as well. Before the town of Swansea came to be, the location was called Signal, not to be confused with the other Arizona ghost town of Signal. So although copper was first discovered at Signal by John W. Johnson in 1862, it actually took 46 years for any large-scale mining operations to become commercially viable. Copper was not as lucrative at the time, and the location was so remote that the lack of transportation to and from the area kept mining activity to a minimum. In fact, during this period, the lack of smelting facilities meant that the copper ore had to be taken away for smelting to Swansea, South Wales in the United Kingdom. The ore traveled by pack mules to the Colorado River and was then shipped from the Gulf of California around Cape Horn to the United Kingdom. It wasn't until 1896, after the severe financial crisis in the United States was over, copper prices increased and interest in Signal started to grow. Then, 8 years later, in 1904, everything changed when local miners Newton Evans and Thomas Jefferson Kerrigan saw an opportunity of a lifetime. Unrelated to Signal, the Arizona and California Railroad had started constructing a line between Wickenburg and Parker. The men realized if they purchased the Signal claim and could then raise enough capital, they could tap into that line by building their own railroad offshoot connecting Signal to Boise, allowing people and supplies to travel easily. They purchased the claim for about $25,000, and the two prospectors began looking for investors to build the connecting railroad in order to grow the operation larger. We've been really excited to film this adventure, so much so that I think it would be a fun idea to express what we're excited for in the beginning of the trip before we go.
So what are you excited for today, Dad?
I'm excited actually because we're going to start doing tracks, the tracks that we take and do during this trip and every trip for you guys.
My dad was the one that was really wanting to push for posting our tracks online. And I do agree that it would be a benefit to other off-roaders to get a feel for where we go and use it as inspiration for their own rides. I was always a little bit apprehensive about it, and it took me this long to really agree to it. I feel a little vulnerable even saying it, but because I'm the one that plans out the rides, when they don't go perfect, and we make wrong turns, honestly, if you download the Gaia, you'll clearly see I've already made a wrong turn or two since I've said this. It really emphasizes how imperfect we are. But hopefully as a fellow off-roader, you understand where I'm coming from. Up ahead, we have our first destination called Midway, which represents the next chapter of this Swansea Ghost Town adventure. In 1908, 4 years after the Signal mining claim was purchased, those two prospectors convinced George Mitchell, a Swansea-born Welshman, to invest in their dream and in his honor, the town of Signal was renamed to Swansea after Mitchell's birthplace. From there, a new company was created called the Clara Consolidated Gold and Copper Mining Company.
Hey Dad, so check this out. This kiosk right here represents Midway. Midway is the halfway point between Bouse and Swansea Ghost Town from the Arizona and Swansea Railroad. The railroad, which was completed due to George Mitchell's investment, was completed on December 31st, 1909, and was the driving factor that really skyrocketed Swansea into an actual town. It went from basically a little mining camp with very few people to a full-blown town, because now you can get coal, lumber, you can get people, everybody now can get to this remote location.
Are we going to try to find the railroad track and the ties on the way that way?
Good question. So that's the cool part about this location. There's a trail that we can follow, and it literally parallels the old railroad.
Awesome.
Now, granted, the railroad does not have any metal, and I'm going to tell you why that is later in the video, but there should be some wood ties.
Railroad ties.
Railroad ties. And I'm kind of hoping we can just parallel it, get some cool drone footage of the railroad and us, but also maybe at one point, let's just get out and just see if we can check out an old railroad tie or two.
See if we could find some for sure.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get on the road and check that out.
Let's go.
As we approach Swansea Ghost Town, I find myself reflecting on why we started this channel. Originally, we started it because we wanted to just make a video diary of our adventures together. I think there's this unspoken truth that as I turn 35 this year and my dad turned 65, we enjoy off-roading, but we also can kind of subconsciously acknowledge that we're not going to be able to do this forever, which was our main motivation in starting the channel. As we started to videotape our adventures, I started throwing in some fun facts here and there, and we got a pretty positive response online, and in general it just kind of made the videos overall more enjoyable to watch. And I think the current format of the channel now is where it's going to be. You know, we're always going to have this video diary aspect because at the end of the day, we're doing this for us, and we want to be able to look back when we can't do this anymore and laugh about our adventures together, honestly, and relive that experience. As we go through this canyon, check out the old railroad path off to the left, carved through this mountain. We're going through right now where there used to be trestles over top of us. Operating on this rail line was 6 flat cars, 6 gondola cars, 3 box cars, a passenger car, and 20 ore cars pulled by one of 3 65-ton Baldwin locomotives.
I don't imagine this trail here has been traveled too much.
So check this out. We found where the Swansea and Arizona Railway was cut through the side of the mountain.
Wow. Yeah. It almost looks like it's washed out a little bit up here.
So now, Dad, what I think we can do, I think we can follow this thing into Swansea. The sand wash we were just in, it definitely parallels this thing, and I confirmed on Gaia GPS that we're good to go.
Great, I got my walking shoes. Let's keep walking then.
Let's go.
So I kind of want to mess with the audience and call one of these cactuses up here a Saguaro. On the last video, I called the Saguaro cactus a Saguaro cactus, and man did I get grilled in the comment section. I learned since then not to wing it. To be clear, I made sure all the facts were correct in the video, but I winged the pronunciation a little bit, and you guys were sure to let me know that I got that one wrong. Our last stop before entering Swansea Ghost Town is the Swansea Train Depot, made of adobe, located at the end of the line, about 1/3 of a mile away from the town. Mixed trains left the Swansea Depot daily for Bouse, coordinating the shipping schedule with the mining operation. Upon its completion, the town quickly grew to approximately 300 residents. So for those of you that are new to our channel, Kirk and I, we do this thing called bumper beers, where we have beers on our bumper, and when we get to the destination, we pound them. But the last 2 times we've done it, I've used the opportunity to spray him.
Oh, you...
I don't think I'm going to be able to get him this time because he knows it's going to be coming. But I have a feeling we're going to be spraying each other when we get there now.
So we should be coming up to our campsite pretty soon.
All right, Dad, you know what time it is.
It's bumper beer time,
It's-
but this time I remembered. I'm not going to let him spray me because it's happened twice already, and it's like, nah, I don't think so. Still, I'm going to wipe the top off, though. Oh, you're shaking it up.
There we go,
Oh,
Dad.
God. I said no, and you still did it. Ah, shoot. All right.
Oh, yeah. I'll say I'm getting used to them, but they're still pretty gnarly.
Well, we made it to Swansea at least. Whew.
We made it to Swansea. Let's check this place out. I got a lot of history to show. Let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Now that we've made it into a mining town, it's really important that we understand how the mining operations work. So this is your crash course on how a mine shaft works. First of all, what we have in front of us is a straight mine shaft. It's probably about 300 to 500 feet deep. On top of it, we have a metal grate. That metal grate was installed by BLM just so people don't fall in. But here's how it actually worked. Back in the early 1900s, they had wood head frames, and the head frame would have looked something like that. At the top of the head frame would have been a sheave wheel. It's just basically a pulley. But going over that pulley into the winch house is a winch. So the winch winches a steel cable over the pulley, which is now connected to a carriage. That carriage, which has a special name, I'll post it for you, but the carriage has the ability to raise and lower people along with ore. Now, today we're actually going to demonstrate exactly how that works. If you would be so kind, Dad, to jump on up into that carriage.
Whew. All right.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Miners take the cage down to a stope where mining takes place. It all starts with extracting raw ore from the earth. Ore is basically just rock that has the valuable metal in it, in this case, copper. These mines are very dangerous because the ore in these mines are held together by iron rust, making the shafts prone to collapse. Therefore, thousands of board feet of timber was needed to expand the mines underground, which was not a cheap nor easy endeavor, considering there are no trees out here. All right, welcome back, Dad. What do you have in your hand over here?
Well, I have some, I think, ore and copper, but kind of in its raw stages here.
That's right, you have ore. And that green tint you see, it's called malachite. And malachite is a chemical reaction with copper that turns the ore green. It's a sure sign that copper is present in the ore. So let's go ahead and take that ore to the smelter. We'll learn about how smelting is done.
Perfect.
What's that, little buddy? You want to like and subscribe the channel? Please like and subscribe. It's free for you, and it helps us out tremendously.
Oh, he's already crawling my leg.
So after the raw ore is extracted from the earth, it goes to the smelter. In the smelter, the ore is exposed to high temperature to extract the metal. Think of the smelter as a microwave, and the ore is a chocolate bar with peanuts in it. As you melt the chocolate in the microwave, the chocolate melts away, and the peanuts, representing copper, are exposed. In order to heat the ore for smelting, a furnace is required. In 1909, George Mitchell brought his own furnace called the Mitchell Economic Hot Blast Furnace, which was the most advanced thing of its kind during the time.
Well, looks like we found Mitchell's Economic Hot Blast Furnace today. Check it out.
It should be noted, the art of refining copper was for many generations a carefully guarded secret among Welsh furnacemen that was handed down from father to son. In 1910, the 350-ton smelting plant became operational and produced 50 tons per 24 hours, which equated to $15,000 per day. The dust chamber above was part of the smelting process. The hot gases, dust, and smoke from the smelters were blown into this structure and returned to the smelter. Waste gas, dust, and smoke exited through the stack at the rear of this building. Check out this hillside that I'm on right now. I'm on a mountain of slag. This stuff is the waste product that came from the smelter where we were earlier. It's kind of like volcanic rock or meteorite, but there's something really cool in this particular spot. Check this out. As the ore cars from above poured the slag down the side of this hillside, the slag, or at least some of it, it's taken a set of the ore card. Notice how it's rounded. Inside the ore car was tapered so that the drying slag, which was still molten, could actually come out. Also built during 1909 was a 3.5-mile water pipeline from the Bill Williams River, which flowed freely in the early 1900s before Alamo Dam was built upstream in 1969. The energy to power the steam-powered generators supporting the water pump smelter in town all came from coal, which was shipped into Swansea by rail. The water was pumped into 2 large water tanks, which stood on the hill south of the dust chamber. Some estimates say as much as 400,000 gallons of water per day was required for operations. Circling back to the story of Swansea Ghost Town, with much of the equipment built and operational, reserve funds were low and more money was needed to finish the operation. George Mitchell traveled to France and raised more money from a French bank. With the refilled treasury, Swansea hummed with activity, finishing the equipment, houses, stores, and a warehouse. On the outside, all seemed good, but behind the scenes, the operation was not what it seemed. Too much investment money had been spent building the smelter, and not enough resources went into extracting ore from the mines. The smelter often sat idle or operated at half capacity. In an attempt to rebalance the operation, larger hoists and other mine-related expenses ate into the treasury. Furthermore, George Mitchell experimented with new but imperfect machinery, which added to expenses. Copper was being produced for 15 cents per pound, while market prices were only 12 cents. In 1911, George Mitchell returned to France looking for more money, but the company was shown to be $712,000 in debt after $2 million worth of investment. It was clear the company was too top-heavy and had wasted too much money on fancy surface equipment, and not enough investment went into actually mining the copper. In 1912, the Clara Consolidated Gold and Copper Mining Company collapsed, forcing many townsfolk to leave. After the bankruptcy of Clara Consolidated, the French bank took over the operation, and French engineers were sent out here to confirm ore reserves. After confirming, a new company was formed under French leadership called Swansea Consolidated Gold and Copper Mining Company. All debts were paid, and the following year, copper prices increased to 16 cents per pound, which made 1912 to 1913 the first profitable year for Swansea. Operations started up again, and the population quickly grew to 1,000 residents. In 1912, a new reverberatory furnace was installed, which increased smelting capacity to 1,000 tons per day. Unfortunately, the new company, Swansea Consolidated, followed the old company in increasing surface machines at the expense of actually mining copper. And in 1913, when copper prices dropped to 13 cents per pound, the company went bankrupt. The final chapter of Swansea starts in late 1913 when the bankruptcy court appointed the United States National Bank in Los Angeles to handle this place. The bank realized that idle mine equipment would corrode and deteriorate, and since the mines did have copper, they leased the operation to the American Smelting and Refining Company, who kept the town on life support made possible by the increased copper demand from World War I, which started in 1914. It should be noted that World War I years in Swansea were different from George Mitchell's management. The new company funded hospitals, schools, workers' cottages, and more. So in the later years, when the American Smelting and Refining Company took over the mining operation, they built these adobe workers' cottages. If you want to come in here and take a look, we have what would have been original flooring. Take a look at this. So we would have had a furnace right here, a wood-burning furnace that would have heated this place. It would have been exhausted out there. But the later years of Swansea, it was quite a bit more pleasant for the workers as opposed to the earlier years with George Mitchell in control. After World War I ended in 1918, copper prices started to plummet, and realizing the current mining operation wouldn't be profitable, a 200-ton concentrator was erected in 1918, along with a flotation plant the following year in 1919, which decreased production costs to 12 cents per pound. These machines' main function was to take mined ore, which may contain lower grade copper minerals, and process it to increase the concentration of copper through crushing, grinding, and a flotation process. Think of it as a sorting machine that separates the good stuff from the rest, making the ore more valuable. From there, the concentrate can go into the smelter to produce more pure copper. After the war, copper prices dropped, and the subsequent Great Depression was the nail in the coffin, forcing the mines to officially shut down in 1937. In that same year, the remaining employees cut up all the steel and the railroad to be sold for lost wages and left the area. Despite a complete absence of economic opportunity, residents lingered here until 1943. There are 2 cemeteries out here, and it is rumored one was Catholic and the other was Protestant. There are 5 designated camping sites maintained by BLM throughout town, each named after one of Swansea's historical figures. From 1906 to 1949, Swansea Ghost Town produced 27 million pounds of copper, which would have equated to $175 million today. We don't know much about the mining schematics, but if you're interested in seeing all the tunnels beneath us, pause the video here. Off-road destinations would definitely like to give a special shout out to BLM, who comes out here and maintains this place. In 2008, BLM and volunteers took part in the Historic Preservation Project, which included replacement and sealing of the adobe blocks and replication of roofing at the workers' cottages. Well, after a full day of filming, we are officially done filming Swansea Ghost Town. Hopefully you got the whole story now. It took us a long time to really get to that point, but I'm happy that we finally did it. Obviously, we've lost the sun. It's time to set up camp, and we're going to go ahead and do that right now.
Yeah, it's definitely been a full day, and you guys get an opportunity. Subscribe, hit the little bell. It really helps us out if you guys like what you see.
Well, I'm all done.
Good for you.
He's still struggling over there. You need some help over there with your tent? That's what you say. That's a wrap. Say, that's a wrap, Dad.
Yeah.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap.